I go out into the hallway and like that bride is bawling her eyes out to security guards. Police come. All these people get on stage and start playing our instruments. I'm gonna send you some videos.
A guy said to me, if you're sleeping on the bunks at night, make sure you sleep with your head facing towards the back of the bus because the driver goes off the road all the time.
She was like, you better get your ass up there and play. We're gonna get the men to beat you up, all right? And then the older Russian lady said, we get some men to beat you up, you know? And I was like, oh no!
So the worst gig I ever had was actually a whole tour of gigs, 3 months of horrible gigs. Just got finished with my first semester, or my second semester at North Texas. I was living in Denton, and I had no money at all. I was working at a laundromat. It was terrible. So I got called to do this gig. I won't say the name of it in case any of these people were still alive, you know, protect the innocent. They called me. It was a full-size big band, and they said, meet behind the Golden Triangle Mall in Denton, Texas at 4 o'clock in the morning on such and such a date. There I was. I met there at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't know how I got there. I didn't have a car at that point. I probably just walked with my luggage and my horn. I forget. So I get there, and there's this ratty bus sitting there in the parking lot. And I walk on. All the other guys are already on the bus, and it looked like The Walking Dead. They all looked like walkers. Like they just were like totally grimacing, not even talking to me at all, and just being really generally nasty. I realized that there's bunks in the back of the bus. I didn't know what that was all about. So there's like half of the bus was seating, and half of it was these ratty bunks with these like 2-inch wide foam pads you would lay on. So I get the tour list of all the dates we're doing. And I'm like, why do we have to leave at 4 o'clock in the morning? This guy says, because our first gig is tonight in Omaha, Nebraska. So I said, Omaha, Nebraska. I looked at the list. Second gig is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. The next gig is in Massachusetts. I said, do these people own a map of the United States? Like, this is ridiculous. I didn't even get a hotel room for 4 nights. You know, and then finally on the 4th night, we had to split a hotel room. And I got a really good piece of advice. A guy said to me, hey kid, if you're sleeping on the bunks at night, make sure you sleep with your head facing towards the back of the bus because the driver goes off the road all the time. Like, oh, that's great. So I didn't use that, but at least the music was horrible. We would play like a 3-hour long set and take like 15 minutes and play like another 2-hour set. We played every cornfield in America, like every single horrible dance hall in America. We'd be like in Dubuque, Iowa, playing at some, you know, horrible VFW thing. The hippest tune on the gig was In the Mood. That was like the cutting edge for these guys was In the Mood. It was absolutely horrific, and I romanticized that it was me paying my dues when in actuality I was being taken advantage of. So let that be a lesson to you kids out there. Pay your dues, but you know, don't get screwed over like that.
That's perfect.
I'm trying to lean in. Like when I have something to say.
Yeah, that's right. Do you have a worst gig story?
We haven't started yet.
The gig just started. I'll let you know at midnight. I think it's hard to put a pin in the worst gig, but it was like one of the worst like 48 hours I've had in my
Oh no. And a gig was involved.
in my life. And a gig was involved, unfortunately. I don't think that I had quit my job yet. So there's a time where I like worked in an office full time and also gigged full time. So like Friday, Saturday, Sunday I was gigging, still working full time, and I still don't know if that was what was happening. But this was, I believe, on a Friday. I was playing with this cover band, and it was, you know, like some of those people that you play with where it's like it feels like so much work just dealing with them. Yeah. Not even musically, just being in their presence sometimes and like having to work with them is so difficult. It was one of those situations. And so we had this gig in Princeton, New Jersey, in Princeton's campus. We didn't get any detail, well, I didn't get any details about this gig. So we drive out, we got to meet up at like noon, somewhere in like Robinson, some like Longhorn Steakhouse. All get in the van together with a trailer and we drive out to Princeton. So like already I'm attached to all these people now for the next 48 hours and I can't get out.
Yeah.
And if you don't like those people, then it's like a lot. So we show up to Princeton, New Jersey. It's a snowstorm. It's terrible. It's in December. And we show up and we're playing apparently now at a frat house. I think that's what it was. In Princeton, or some sort of student center, I don't know. The person who was like our point of contact at the school, like just left. She was like, hey, so this is gonna go till like 2 a.m. Have fun. And like left the campus. Then what happened was like 300 kids came in, Princeton students, super like dressed up, like I don't know if it was like a Roaring 20s theme or something, but like they were all like super dressed up. Nobody had started drinking. Well, maybe they started drinking, but they were the rowdiest kids I've ever seen, and we've played like a lot of colleges and stuff, and they were just like next level, no chaperone, no like adults around, just unfiltered, filthy college kids. From like the first song, it feels dangerous. Because like we're in this room, in this like old like fancy building, but there's like 300 kids just like crammed in. Every song someone's taken an article of clothing off, like in the group, and they're doing this thing, and it's starting to like feel really like kind of scary. So we play like our first set, and then we have to like take a break, and you know, we're DJing music, and as soon as we get off the stage, all these people get on stage and start playing our instruments.
Oh my.
Like these girls get, like 2 girls behind the drum set are like banging away at these drums. And there are some videos, I'm gonna send you some videos of this because I documented, I found them on my Instagram story because it was so ridiculous. It was like insane. So I was already having a terrible time. I was playing bass in this band. My bass amp broke. So I was just like going, for any bass players out there, I was just like going direct bass into the system, which like sounds horrid. All those people on the stage knocked over my iPad, shattered my iPad on the ground. And the band leader was like nowhere to be seen, not doing anything. And like, I think maybe he was getting involved with what was happening. There were like a lot of kids like doing in the bathrooms and like doing like a whole lot of like, you know, there's a lot of nefarious acts that were occurring at this place, as they do in college, but there wasn't anyone to moderate this thing. It was just us, and we just played till like 2 a.m. and it got so insane. All of our stuff broke. There was a time where I went to the singer, I'm like, I feel like we need to stop. This is getting like too much. So like we played and we were done. They were like livid that we were done playing music, to the point where like I felt like a riot was gonna break out. They were drunk, high, no clothes, and it just became this whole thing. And we're like, we need to get the out of here. And so we like packed up our stuff and like finally packed up the trailer, the van, and everything. And I think we stayed on campus in like another building. At this point, it was like maybe a foot of snow, so it was like terrible. It was like hard to, so we didn't get to our room till like 4 a.m. or something like that. And then we had to wake up in the morning and get back to Pittsburgh.
And you're all in the van still, right?
And we're all in the van, and like just everyone is completely miserable, myself included. And we get a flat tire that day. We were like on the way home, and we got a flat tire on the trailer, which sucked because the trailer has like special tires, so it wasn't even like we can't really put a spare. We couldn't put a spare on the trailer. I don't actually remember what happened. There was a tow truck. They came and like we had to tow the trailer to somewhere to get a tire on it. We had to wait at this place. I don't know if we had a gig that day or whatever, but we had to get back to Pittsburgh for whatever reason. We got back to Pittsburgh 5 hours later than wanted to. So much of our stuff broke. I don't remember if my iPad was replaced. I can't remember that far back. That was one of the worst, like just generally 48 hours of experience that I had. And then I think I like quit that band shortly after. I think I was like, you know what, this isn't really worth it, because you spread out all that time, look at what you got paid, and then you break it out into an hourly rate. And I do that a lot. I'm like, this gig was a pain in the. How much money was I making? It was less than, felt like less than minimum wage.
It's like one thing if it's like less than minimum wage and you had like such a good time, played great music, good people.
Worth it.
Fine.
It was work from the start, and then it just got worse from there. So I'm sure Princeton is a fine place. But so if you're from Princeton, don't come at me. Or if you were there, if you remember the show I'm talking about, you owe me $400 for an iPad.
I'll put your Venmo on screen.
This
isn't gonna get you in trouble, right?
I hope. So yeah, early on in my booking career for the wedding band, I'd been playing with the band for a few years, but I am the go-between between the musicians and the client. During our public showcase, this woman comes up to me, and I just remember her being like, so I was just like, I really want like big energy, like everything needs to be like big for my wedding. And I'm like, cool, yeah, we got like, we have an energetic band, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, do you ever do like all guys? And I'm like, well, usually we have at least like, you know, male singer and female singer, so that we can do a wider variety of repertoire and stuff like that. I had my whole pitch and everything, and she's like, yeah, I'm just like worried about, like, your female singers don't seem to be like, you know, they need to be more like spunky and like energetic. I'm like, oh, like, don't worry, like, you know, blah blah blah. Like, I talked her down from the ledge or whatever. And little did I realize this was a huge red flag. Now, if I saw any of that, I'd be like, no, I think we might not be the right band for you. Here's my friend's band, go bother them. Eventually I talked her into hiring us, of course. Throughout the planning process, we get a song list from the client of like songs they want to hear throughout the day, artists that they love, anything that's on a do not playlist, that type of thing. Van Morrison, Brown Eyed Girl, You Are the Best Thing, Hey Ya by Outkast, Shout, like all pretty normal, right? And then they, you know, they made their own Spotify list to be played during the breaks. We're not even at the gig yet. So that all goes according to plan. One of the things that was required was they were going to enter the room to Green Onions by Booker T. They have this whole plan where there's like a spotlight. They wanted to open the doors, and she said she wants it to be an explosion of sound whenever they for their bridal introductions, right? If you know Green Onions, you know that is not an explosion of sound. It's just like an organ like ding a ding a ding a ding a ding. Like, anyway, so we did that, and apparently they had a problem with it because they told me every problem that they had afterwards. Oh, cocktail hour. This is how I knew something was wrong. The cocktail hour was one of the first things, and went to the bar to order a drink, and they were already out of whiskey.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, cool. Party animals. Either they're party animals or they're cheap and like didn't pay for enough booze. But definitely party animals. Fast forward to the actual dance sets. We start doing them, and like some people are dancing. There's like this vibe of like they weren't totally connecting with what we were doing. Sometimes that's just how it is. It's just like it takes some time to warm up the dance floor, blah blah blah. The bride comes up to us on the first break, and she's like, hey, like, you know, like we want energy. We want, like, you know, like ramp it up for the next set. We're like, cool, yeah, got it. Because of that, we like edited the set list and everything for the second set. We start playing the first song. She's like, no. And like visibly, like at the front of the stage, like, nope. And we were like, okay, cool. Like, you know, we like casually end whatever song it was. We go into the next one, and she's like, no, and I was like, okay, cool, stop. And then they're yelling at me, we literally only want rap. And I was like, well, like, maybe you should have thought of that before hiring like an all-white wedding band, basically. And these are all songs, like, we're playing all of the songs that they had told me they wanted. They just changed their mind, I guess. Like, I don't know. It was very, very confusing. So we play Hey Ya, which was a must-play on their list, I will say. Like, they were like, we need to hear this on our wedding day. I was like, cool. Like, let's do this. Maybe they'll, like, you know, chill out a little bit. So we play that, and she's like, no, And so I was like, okay, that's the rule of 3 for me. I'm like, band, like, you did a great job. I don't think we did anything wrong. You're free to go. I'm just gonna send you home. Don't worry about it. We're gonna DJ the rest of the night. That's what we did. By this point, they were very drunk. The groom had his shirt off. I had his playlist that they had made beforehand queued up, and I was playing it. But I took off all of the songs from his playlist that we were planning on playing live, which is, you know, what you're supposed to do. Because of that, there were songs that they did want to hear, but they weren't on my playlist. So he felt the need that he needed to plug in his own phone. He's now at the soundboard, like, we're gonna play like my playlist. I'm like, cool, man. I was like, yeah, here you go. Here's the input. And he's like, do you have a dongle? And I was like, no, I don't have a dongle. I don't need one. I use this thing. And he's like, they're like freaking out. There is like 2 hours left of this wedding. So I'm like, luckily my friend George was there to like, he stayed with me because I felt very uncomfortable by myself. It continued like that where I'm just like sitting there like awkwardly. I'm like, yep, just use my equipment. It's fine. Like, I'm just not going to be in the picture at all. Like, I just don't want to cause any more problems, basically. An hour later, where we were was a hotel with, there was a ballroom and then another ballroom beside that. So they were having 2 different weddings at the same time. The group that I was working for, the wedding that I was working, a lot of the guests went into the other one to crash their party because they still had booze and like they had a DJ over there and we're having a good time. So like I go out into the hallway and like that bride is bawling her eyes out to security guards and like police come to like break up like the 2 parties basically. People from the wedding that I was working was like, yeah, we fired the band, like blah, blah. It was a complete show. Eventually, you know, I left there without getting my kicked, which was a miracle if I'm being completely honest. Then I had to deal with the like, oh well, we want our money back and blah 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 and that whole thing, and we worked that out between me and like the higher ups, my boss basically. That was the worst gig I've ever done.
That is awful.
Yeah.
Oh.
The last couple of years I've been playing mostly wedding gigs, but growing up I was playing a lot in like the punk scene and stuff. The punk shows were always cool. Ironically, the worst stuff that I've ever run into is in the weddings. There's like a certain kind of privilege that shows up on someone's special day where it's rare that it gets out of hand, but on this one particular day it definitely did. There was a groom who was abusing some substances. Everything seemed pretty chill, it's a beautiful country club place. I was listening to like the story of how they met. They were like high school sweethearts, you know what I mean? They had like the biggest cookie table anyone had ever seen, which is like a PA thing. Should have known from the get-go that something was gonna go wrong when the groom was in charge of working with the band leading up to the wedding, and he gave us 0 requests. No requests. So we had to pick our own set list. We tried to pick some standard kind of boilerplate stuff. Kind of noticed him getting like a little progressively more out of it as the night went on. First set, things are going good. Second set, he's stumbling around a little bit more, but we just play. Third set, after like 1 or 2 songs in, he starts coming up and just stopping us. No, I just want the hits. I told Andrew, who's our booking guy, I just want the hits, and we're like, man, we didn't get any requests from this guy. Like, we have no idea. From there, it kind of spiraled. Every song that we played, he cut us off. I tried my best to keep my cool. After a while, I was like, I didn't know what to do. I just kind of like froze, and the band's like looking at me like, hey, what do we play next? I'm like, I don't know. Like, we just went through every song on our set, and we have like a half hour left, And I think he sensed my frustration a little bit and got like even more. That's when he started getting in my face. Definitely. And he's like a tall guy, and he was just like in the face, and his groomsmen had to come pull him back. He was screaming, he was cussing us out. It was just like, we were all like, no way. Yeah. And our drummer is just like filming it.
Classic drummer.
Yeah.
Back too.
Yeah, he was like, this is proof. We might need this. So I'm like, I'm glad somebody is. People pulled him back, and he did let us play some songs. And we're playing like Uptown Funk, last song. It's like always the last song. And everybody loves it. The crowd's into it the whole night, and they're dancing, and he's in the middle. It's like that ring around the bride and groom, and he's in the middle, and his wife's like kind of dancing on him, and he's just sitting there like, just like staring at us. I'm like, oh man, you're like ruining your night, I'm like, what is going on? And then like the teardown was the worst part. Like I had asked the groomsmen to like make a human wall, because like I told them, like, if he touches us, any of us, like I'm calling the cops. Like this is not gonna be a fun wedding night for anybody, His mom was like, and his dad shook our hand on the way out. I could tell he felt pretty bad, but he thanked us and everything. But I think that's the worst gig I've ever played. Yeah, for sure. So my second worst story also also a wedding gig. It was this beautiful ceremony in this botanical garden here in Pittsburgh. They were really sweet. They wanted us to eat what they eat. Sometimes there's a prepared meal at these kinds of things, but they wanted us to sit down at the table and share kind of what they were having, and it was really sweet. But the venue has like a policy that like the band gets served last. That kind of threw us off, like our time wise, because we're like supposed to get back up there and play. And then these two women, one about my age and an older lady, come up to the table and they say they were just complaining that we were supposed to play. You know, like, yeah. We're like, yeah, I know, but the food isn't here. Like, we're sorry. You know, we didn't see this coming.
And that's like, just so people know, like, it's typically my understanding is most bands' policy is we don't play until we eat. Is that?
Yes, but at the same time, like, the food was really late. So,
yeah, okay. So it just threw everything.
In hindsight, if I had known, I would have maybe got the band up there while we were waiting for the food, play some other music, make everybody happy. But we didn't know it was going to be so, we're just sitting there waiting, and then got too much. But they were so upset. The one woman the older woman was from Russia, and I think the younger one was from Long Island or something like that. I'm from there. She was like, you better get your ass up there and play. We're gonna get the men to beat you up, all right? And then the older Russian lady was like, we get some men to beat you up, you know? And I was like, oh no! This is awful. And of course my piano player is like over there, so he's just like, you can't let him walk all over you like that, Diego. And I'm like, but so we had to hustle and get back up there and make some music, you know. I mean,
so
weddings.
Dude,
weddings.
That's awesome. Before I get into my story, I just want to quickly remind everyone that I'm playing a live video game music show April 26th, 6 to 9 at King Fly Spirits in the Strip District. So if you're in Pittsburgh, PA or near Pittsburgh, PA, come out, come say hi. I'll link all the info in the description. So since I'm so young and inexperienced, I don't really feel like I have a great worst gig story, but I do have one gig that I was pretty miserable on that I thought I would tell just briefly at the end of this video. This was a gig that I played where I had to drive to another city. Luckily they compensated me extra so I could pay for lodging, but I got to the gig and basically no one on the gig really knew each other, and everyone kind of had like a negative attitude from the get-go, and in my experience that will either make or break a gig. Also, the room was bad. It was just so hard to hear everything because there was like a ton of natural reverb. Now I was pretty new to playing weddings at this point. I still kind of am, but we were supposed to play like a dinner set of just like relaxed dinner music for while everyone's eating, and there must have been some like confusion between the wedding planner and the band leader or something, and like they were gonna try to start playing their dance set while everyone was eating, like start playing like September while people are like eating their salads. And I was like a little confused. I was like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. And I went over to the trumpet player on the gig who was like visibly upset at this, like head down, like just not happy on this gig at all. And I was like, hey man, like I've only played like 10 of these gigs or so, but it seems like in my experience, everyone always like plays dinner music for dinner and then waits to play the dance music for when people are ready to dance. And he was like, yeah, I've played like 300 of these and that's how it goes. Like he was not happy. And that was the first gig I met this guy on, but he's like a really nice dude and an incredible trumpet player. Luckily someone talked the band leader out of like playing that music for the dinner set, so we played like normal dinner set music. We played the first dance set and it was fine, but like the other saxophone player had never played any weddings before, which is cool, that's how everyone starts, but everything felt pretty sloppy. No one really knew each other in the band or had played with each other before, and a lot of times, in my experience, there's at least a couple people, you know, who have played with each other before and really know the rep, so that everyone else who's fairly new can, you know, hop on board and they'll kind of lead them through the gig. But yeah, everything was just like really sloppy. There was kind of bad communication, and like the energy on the bandstand was like fine, but as soon as we got off, it was like a switch changed and like half the people were just unhappy and like complaining about the gig and complaining about everything, and that will really like ruin a gig. Like if you're on a bad gig but you're with a lot of fun people that you really like and that have a good attitude, it totally changes the gig atmosphere. So yeah, it was just like 3 sets. I think it was a late gig too, like I want to say it went to like midnight, and then I was in this city far away and I had to walk to my hotel and then wake up early the next morning because I had to get back home for something. So there weren't any like police that came or anything like that, but it was just like the gig felt like work, and it was one of those gigs where I got done and I'm like, what am I doing? Every now and then, and early on, more often than not, you have gigs like that, or at least I did, where I'm just like, oh man, this is not why I started playing music, you know? And a lot of that just has to do with the people that you're around, I think, and not even as much about the music that you're playing. So I'm sure I'll have a much worse gig story than that in like 10, 15, 20 years, but for now, I just thought I would share one of the least favorite gigs I've played for sure up to this point. As you can see, so many of my musician friends are like great storytellers, and they all have a lot of incredible experience that I'm super grateful they decided to share with me so that I can share with you guys. Let me know if you like these musician story time videos or what other topics you'd want to hear. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.